Hello everyone, it's Johnny Catrue, and in today's video, it's my first listen to the new Black Country New Road album, Ants from Up There. Black Country New Road are one of several exciting new English bands who came up in the last few years, making ambitious yet cutting post-punk for the modern day. Black Midi, Squid and BCNR have all released incredible debut albums with their own unique spins on this kind of prog-punk. The first I heard of Black Country New Road was their amazing single, Sunglasses, with its thrilling punk jazz jams and the passionate David Byrne-esque rants of vocalist Isaac Wood. And their debut album for the first time did not disappoint. They augmented their more intense jams with minimalist moments of beauty, such as on the track X. And Black Midi followed up their debut with a thrilling swerve into experimental prog rock. Their second album, Cavalcade, actually ended up being my favorite album of 2021. You can see my first reaction to that album with the link up here. Now, when Black Country New Road started releasing new singles towards the end of last year, I was really excited that we'd be getting their follow-up so soon. However, I was a bit put off by the very overt influence from 2000s indie rock on all three of the first singles, especially from Arcade Fire, who they almost seemed to be aping at times on these songs. I was concerned that perhaps this new album was not going to go in a direction that really works for me. But this was still the same band that blew me away with Sunglasses and Science Fair, so I still had hope for some of that intense and angular magic to show up here. And we now know that this will actually be the last album with Isaac Wood on vocals, so in that way this album marks a bit of an end of an era for the band. The rest of this video will be highlights from my live stream over on Twitch, where I listened to the album in full for the first time. You can follow me over there if you'd like to join me for some more listening parties. So do me a favor and click the like button on this video, and let's get into the album. Let's start with track 1. It's the intro, and we'll go straight into track 2, Chaos Space Marine. Kicking things off with a bit of 5/8. Yeah, good start. This is the part that I found so off-putting when I first heard it. It sounds just like Arcade Fire. I'm into this bit. I think this is the first time I've realized that that extremely Arcade Fire sounding section in the middle only comes once. I didn't notice that the other times I listened to the single. It just feels wrong to me. It just feels like such a pastiche of Arcade Fire to me that it doesn't quite work. It's just far less exciting than some of their old stuff for me, and I more or less feel the same about it now as I did when I heard it as a single. But, you know, I do like the saxophone runs, you know, the bits of violin. There's some cool instrumental things. They perform it well. Isaac sounds good. You know, it's a strong performance, but it's just not entirely satisfying. Let's move into track 3. It's Concord. It feels very American to me. Well, I'm sorry to say, guys, that I haven't really changed my feelings on it from when it was a single. I don't really like it. I have to be honest. I think it's okay. It's pretty. It's well done, but it doesn't do anything for me. Kind of dull, honestly, and too derivative. That's a really big problem for me, that it just sounds like things I've heard before when I know I've heard this band do such exciting, unique things. It sounds so American to me. And I do wonder if this is why it's working for so many people I see online. Maybe it's because this is more appealing to American listeners. It feels like it's not for me, honestly. That being said, I think that of the 3 singles, the next one, Bread Song, was the one I liked more than the others. Already there's this kind of melancholy longing in this one that works a bit more for me. Some Radiohead influence on this one. I do like these chords here. So even if it's not saying a lot, that is my favorite of the 3 singles and my favorite song so far on the album. I do like the minor chords in the introduction, and especially when they return, but with the clicky-clacky drum rhythm. Sounds driving. There's this kind of emotional tension in it that builds and works really well, and I feel it. But as soon as it starts rising in that orchestral way, there's something changes in the writing and even the melodies, and I just go off it. You know, those sections just don't do it for me. Like, they give me the same feeling as Concord, you know, it just feels slightly overblown, and it all culminates in that moment where he sings, "Oh darling, I don't like that at all." So yeah, that song's very much a song of two halves for me. There's parts of it I like a lot and parts of it that I really can't stand. I really hope there's more that the album has to offer. Time to get into the songs I haven't yet heard. Track 5 is called Goodwill Hunting.
You almost grab mine, but you find yours. You call, I'll change your mind, darling, I'll.
Couple of nice changes there.
Some piece of the stars.
Impressive vocal performance.
Everyone will say it was cool.
I think Isaac really improved his vocals. I have to praise him for that. He's clearly come a long way, and he's able to really carry a melody with feeling and project his voice, you know. It's impressive. But yeah, overall the song just, it didn't do too much for me. It's okay. It did build nicely, and I did quite get into it in that big ending, even if it was, again, a little typical. And in terms of the songwriting, there's still a egregious lack of tension for me. Where's the excitement, you know? It's just this kind of languid indie pop, it feels like. Well, we're halfway through the album. Here's hoping for a more exciting and satisfying second half. Getting into it with track 6, which is called Haldern. I like how this is starting. Actually kind of reminds me of some post-rock like Bach Psychosis. Yeah, something almost Steve Rack about it, isn't it? Oh, nice. Cool. That was probably the most interesting song we've had yet. I enjoyed it a whole lot, even if it was mostly in terms of the arrangement, the way it was put together. And I found a lot of the playing really exciting as well. In terms of the actual songwriting, it was okay. In fact, it was maybe a little bit looser than some of the other ones, that one. I didn't find it particularly memorable, the vocal parts, but I had enough to enjoy with all the piano and violin interplay that was going on in there. Track 7 is called Mark's Theme. Should mention as well, I was reminded of track X during that last song. Lewis gets a solo spot. Beautiful recording. Piano sounds so nice. Yeah, that song was really pretty. I liked it. You know, I wouldn't say it's anywhere close to blowing me away or anything, but as I said, really nicely recorded, really nicely played, and pretty composition. Makes for a nice interlude. The next song I've noticed is getting a lot of acclaim. I've been quite excited to hear this one. Track 8 is called The Place Where He Inserted the Blade.
Our school friends and they sign on. Every time I try to make lunch for anyone else, show me the place where he inserted the blade.
I like the jazz rhythm here. Wow. The wrong kind of wow though, guys. Oh my god. I can't believe I'm saying this, but that was easily my least favorite on the album so far. It's bland to me, but it's also so like sweet. It just hits me completely the wrong way. Just the most typical chord sequences that just go nowhere for me and just make me feel nothing. I mean, as I said, Isaac's vocals are still very personal to him and sound good. It means a lot to him. You know, you can really feel it in his delivery, and that's great. But in terms of the music, the composition, it's just so bland to me, just so typical, and just I don't feel it. I really don't feel it. It's this kind of American indie rock style that didn't appeal to me back when it was big, and I'm not happy to hear it come back, basically. I really can't believe this is the same band that made fucking Sunglasses and Science Fair. A little bit of post-rock ambition, but basically just 2000s American indie rock is what it sounds like to me. Next one was the fourth single that I didn't listen to, saved it for the album. It's called Snow Globes. It's maybe a bit harmonically simplistic, but something could be built on this. Something of Godspeed You Black Emperor in here as well, isn't there, in the way it's building?
He doesn't look anything like Jesus.
That change there is really nice. A little bit of longing in it. Drummer's going for it. Okay, so I see what they did there. It was a clever concept. The way it started out incredibly simple and minimal, and over the course of the song it slowly built, and then in the end it stripped it all away until it was back down to the one guitar with singular notes again. Interesting. I also really loved the way the drums built in the middle. I mean, some of that drumming was really excellent, and, you know, good on the drummer because he did a great job. Sounded fantastic. However, I have a similar complaint to many of the other songs on this album, that I just found it to be harmonically very bland for the most part. In the chord sequence they had, there were a couple changes that had a little bit of longing in them that I did like, but mostly I just found them quite dull and not very interesting and don't really emotionally touch me, unfortunately. Again, Isaac's vocal performance, very passionate, built really well, and by the time everything was going and the drums were going crazy, he was giving it a lot of power and it worked well. That when we had the simple parts in the beginning, I could imagine all different interesting melodic ideas that could possibly go over it, and I don't really feel that they capitalized on that. Melodically, it didn't really do anything, I don't think. But yeah, it did at least have a good build, and they gave it some passion, and I did appreciate it for that. All right, that just leaves us with the last song, track 10. It's called Basketball Shoes. Maybe there's some American football influence here.
Market town that we intersect.
More interesting minimalism here. I have to say most of the vocal section before it didn't do too much for me.
Oh, I can't think of anything better.
Very interesting structure to this song. Nice. Big ending. So much passion, and especially from Isaac. I mean, really an incredible vocal performance. Yeah, in fact, I would say that song works really well to bring everything this album does together into one really sturdy, well-constructed track. Had really interesting structure that moved between super minimalist passages, post-rock inspired builds, all really well put together and well performed, even if, again, some of the sequences just don't quite do it for me. You know, again, chord sequence, quite bland for me. It was the structure and the builds that kind of won me over to an extent on that song. But yeah, I think you guys know what's coming. For me, this album is one of my biggest disappointments in a really long time, and probably my biggest disappointment since starting the channel. I mean, I love this band, and I liked their first album so much that even after hearing the singles for this and being pretty disappointed, I still held on hope that the album was going to have more for me. Just do more of those kind of rhythmically interesting, tension building, incredibly thrilling and exciting, aggressive, but often, you know, emotional elements of that first album that I loved so much. And for me, it was almost entirely missing on this album. They moved into a style here that just isn't for me. It's so clearly influenced by bands that I know are really loved by many people, but just so often haven't worked for me. It might surprise you to know that I am a fan of Arcade Fire, and I really like the album Funeral. It's a singular album for me, and the songwriting on Funeral is so strong that even though I don't always love the production set style, I don't always love the sounds on Funeral, the songwriting is just so strong. You know, it just gets through to me, and it's like I love it despite the sound not being always for me. On this album, I feel that they take so much of that sound, but the writing, it just doesn't come through to me. But that being said, I think that if they had moved into this new, more 2000s indie style and 2000s post-rock style and done it with chords and melodies that would get through to me and move, and, you know, changes that would move me more, it could have worked for me. But unfortunately, I just found the writing on this to be so flat a lot of the time. And often I felt that the performances on here were so passionate, especially from the vocalist Isaac, so passionate that it did get to me at times. It did work for me, but it was always despite the melodies. It was always despite the chord sequences, which just time after time just fell flat for me on this album. And yeah, as Al says, just feel incredibly generic. So yeah, I'm very sorry to the people that are really in love with this album. I wish I could be there with you. I really do. I love this band, and as any of you guys know who follow my channel, I'm really into this whole scene of UK bands, English bands coming out of post-punk and doing all kinds of interesting things. But this album is unfortunately just a move into a kind of music that is not what I'm excited to hear in 2022. And I think that's really what it comes down to. If you're into that kind of thing, then I think this album has a lot to offer. And I think that there are a lot of people, especially people from America, I will say, that I know really love early Arcade Fire and really love Godspeed You Black Emperor and American football, who I also like a lot. But all these kind of 2000s American bands that, yeah, have a really passionate fan base, and Black Country New Road here seem to be really providing for that fan base, and that's great. But for me, it's just disappointing. I was hoping for so much more, honestly. So let me know down in the comments what you think of this album. And if you missed the stream and would like to see the full unedited reaction, check out my Patreon. Whichever tier you support me at, you get access to the full archive of unedited reactions, and you'll be helping me to keep my channels going and keep making these videos, so I really appreciate it. Thanks very much to all my current Patreon supporters, and thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.